Good evening, one and all. It is September the 24th, 8 o'clock in the evening. Time for macro talk. I've done a lot of macro talking today. Not as much as Lester, but quite a bit. We did our second interview today. It was fantastic. I laughed as much as I did the first time, which is going to irritate a lot of you, I know. Just hard not to. The guy is so funny. We had a great conversation, and I think you're going to love every minute of it. It will not be out until December the 3rd, and that is because Lester is going to be traveling, and he doesn't want to be gone when the video comes out. So there you go. Gives me a little while to get it ready, but yeah, if you don't have a book, go to his website and get one. It's important that you do that, otherwise they'll run out. It is www.macrophotographer.net, and when you get there, there'll be a little thing you can click on, and that'll take care of that. Tonight we're talking about the Gilloy technique, high-speed, continuous light focus stacking in the field, and some of the problems that have kind of come to light over the last few days. Nothing bad. Klaus, don't leave. It's just a few things that I've discovered, others have discovered, and stuff we already knew about, but as we start to feel our way through this technique, there are going to be a few things we need to work out. So tonight we're going to be talking about what these problems are, how we can mitigate them, and where we go from here with this exciting new technique. Competition this month, the theme is submerged. Doesn't say what you're submerged in or what is submerged or how you photograph. It's just submerged. That's the topic. And Angie Wallace is going to judge it with me. You have another, week? Yes, you have a week to get submerged and take a picture. Big announcement for the competition next month. No, it's not next month, is it? It's next month is October. Okay, all right. I just changed my mind about the big announcement. Well, no, I'll do it anyway. The big announcement is that our December competition is actually going to be a November and December competition. 2 months. 3 images. You can submit 3 images. It is a wild card for the whole 8-week period. So the best pictures that you can come up with during those 8 weeks, you get 3 of them, whether you've won the competition before or not. Okay, everybody gets 3. And the judge, besides me, is Lester. That's going to kind of raise the stakes. The first prize will be a signed set of Lester Lefkowitz books, both volumes of the manual of close-up and macro photography. Second prize will be volume 2. Third prize will be volume 1. There may even be a lens thrown in here somewhere. Talking about lenses, that's for the competition. Talking about lenses, there are a couple of lenses that have arrived on the doorstep in the last week. The first I talked about briefly last week. It's the Sigma 105 f2.8. It's not the art lens, it's the one before that. But it's a fantastic lens with great optical stabilization. I've been out shooting with it, and I've had a couple of requests to do a head-to-head comparison between that lens and its closest rival, which is probably the regular 105 micro Nikkor f2.8. I'm going to kind of fudge on that and also compare it to the MC 105 f2.8. So that'll be a head-to-head-to-head comparison, kind of. The second lens that I want to talk about, the second lens I am going to be talking about, I'm going to be making a video about actually, is going to be this one. This lovely 90mm Laowa CA Dreamer Macro 2X is Susan's, but Susan has. I should have mentioned that the Sigma lens is Alan's, Alan Rectenwald. Thank you, Alan. And Susan has lent me this Laowa, the 90, and I'm very excited about it. I've actually been shooting seeds with it what are those things called? Portulaca seeds. Yeah, still look like little black seeds to me. But I do have some fresh ones to look at, thanks to George. Thank you, George, and also thank you for the pepper. And some seeds from Alan as well. So yeah, that's what I've been doing with it. But we're going to put this one really through its paces. It's going to hammer this lens. Not anything to worry about, Susan. I'll be very gentle with it, but we're going to give it a full workout. I found the coolest thing stuck to the back door of the house this afternoon. I haven't had a chance to look it up yet. I don't know if you'll be able to see. Oh, I just knocked him on his back. That was mean. Yeah, look at the antennas on that thing. Somebody needs to figure this out. Look it up and tell me what this is before the end of the stream. I'm not familiar with it. I've never seen a beetle with such gloriously big antennae. Look at them. I don't know if you can even see them properly, but they're gigantic. They're like, they'd be that big if I had them. Yeah. Beautiful beetle. Absolutely. Well, you can see them from the top there. See them? See them? Oh, no, I did it again. All right, not to worry. Okay, so you buy a microscope because you want to make a focus block. And one of the first things you realize is that when you get through making your focus block, there's a lot of bits left over. Bits that you might not have anything to do with. I had some bits left over from a microscope where this was, I'm not exactly sure whose this was, but I was given permission to use the bits if I wanted them. And I had a stage left over. And I 3D printed something this weekend that I'm super proud of. I think that you might want to do this. If you end up buying a microscope to use the focus block and end up with a stage, you should think seriously about making one of these things. This is the stage. If I tip this enormous block back, you can see, or maybe you can't actually because of where I have it. But this is the focus mechanism, which is normally pointed down towards the ground. It just makes a nice smooth XY positioner. You can't see the top of it, but now you can. I put a little rotation table on the top there, and all the mounts and brackets and everything are 3D printed, so it was quick and easy to make, but it's nice. It's a nice XYR addition to this big Chinese laser engraver table. Only took 10 minutes, well, half an hour to design and about 15 hours to print, because I'm not good at obviously setting up the print settings. But this thing's great. I know it's wobbling around a bit, but yeah, when it's actually on the stage over there, it does a great job. I'm very happy with it. Better than throwing the thing away. Anyway, if you want the plans for that, I can put them over on the for the two different brackets. I can put them over on the 3D bit of the Discord. Yep, that's what I could do. There's one other thing I wanted to talk to you about. This is really a question I need to ask you. I was fiddling around making some drawings of the rig that I'm building. Seeing as it looks like the medium format thing is dead in the water for now, I need to get a good system set up. And I want to build this system as a teaching platform to help me do my job for you, which is show you a lot of detail stuff. So I thought one way to do that would be to build a stage where as much of the equipment was out of sight, out of the way, so that you didn't have to be distracted by it. And the second thing was I wanted to use as few bendy arms as possible, as few articulating arms, super clamps, all of that stuff. I just wanted to be able to clip my lights directly onto some rail and have them roughly in the right position, so that I would have room to put little cameras on the superstructure, if you will, so that I could turn the thing on and show you what I'm doing, show you what I'm talking about up close, so you could see how a bug is posed or how the lighting is set up, that type of thing. So I'll show you the drawing, because it comes with a question, and the question is a weird one. So this is in Fusion 360. If you come to the doodad on Saturday, Tangent, you may see this. I don't know. I don't know if you will or not. That'll be largely totally up to Larry actually. But this is the device I came up with. So the idea is that your camera and rail are mounted on. This is an idler platform. That just means it's a big slab of something heavy that's on a couple of linear bearings, which are right underneath there. So the idea is that this thing slides backwards and forwards. You probably noticed this thing is not properly to scale. That's on purpose. I was just trying to sketch it out to get ideas. The device for driving it is going to be the NovaFlex rail or a StackShot rail underneath this thing, which is made of extruded aluminum. This is, and then this is going to be a heavy platform on top of it with a groove cut in it that this metal arm thing attaches to the idler platform up above. Does that make any sense? So, as this moves back and forth, as I'm focus stacking, it moves the whole platform back and forth with no twist, so that my camera moves back and forth. Yeah, pretty simple. That's the usual thing. This big yellow block is the thing I just showed you, the massive table. I chose it because of its weight. You're probably wondering what the what the roller coaster assembly is. Well, this was how I decided I could get rid of bendy arms, by having an extruded aluminum structure right where all my flashes would normally be. So I sketched out a hemisphere where I would normally end up putting all my flashes, and then made sure that there was a piece of superstructure there so I could clip the flash directly onto it. Now, the problem is this, and this is my question for you. I have never seen curved aluminum extrusion. This should be, with a bit of luck, 80-20. So that I can just clip my little bracket things, my adapters into it, and put the flashes anywhere I want on any of these poles. But I don't know that they make curved 20-20 or curved any size of aluminum extrusion. Does anybody know? And if you don't, or if you do know that they don't, is it possible to bend this stuff? Which one of you engineering chaps has tried to bend this stuff into a circle? It's a bit interesting, isn't it, for a physics problem? But I rather like it. I think it's quite trendy, and I think it will be highly functional, especially when I mount a camera in here and a camera up here, so that you can see what's going on, and there won't be a lot of stuff in the way. So it's an evolved platform. What I'm trying to get Larry to talk about on Saturday is how we can take this, which hasn't been dimensioned. I just guessed at the sizes just to get something down on paper. But how do we now go about dimensioning it in retrospect so that the sizes are right without messing everything else up? That'll be kind of interesting to see. It might not be doable. I might have to go back and draw it again. But anyway, that's where we are with it. Any comments? If they're positive and encouraging, that would be great. If they're not, just tell them to Joseph, and he'll deal with them for me. Sound like a plan? What are we talking about tonight? We're talking about the very exciting work. I forgot something. I did forget something super important, and it's too important for me not to mention it. First of all, if you have sent me a message on the Walls app, if you have sent me a message through Patreon, I know about it. I've probably already read the message. I just haven't had a chance to respond. I will do, if not tonight, tomorrow morning. Okay, I'm getting caught up, but I do apologize for the delay. You have probably heard about by now, or read something about on the website or in one of my posts, about the AWP Essentials, the project that I'm doing. I mentioned this on Thursday. I'll mention it in a little bit of detail now. And if you want more details, go to my website, look at the most recent blog. It's www.alanwallsphotography.com/blog/good. And that's because of Thursday's live stream title, but good, it's the name of the blog. And I've put a manifesto over there, kind of an explanation of what the project is all about and what I'm looking for, which is your help. I have been asked many times by many people to please find a way to catalog my work, or some of my work, so that people who come to Macro wanting to get a head start and get moving on this will know what to watch. They'll know what to go to first and where to find information on focus stacking, field equipment, post-processing, using Xerene Stacker, all these things. So the way I have tried to do this in the past is to go back and catalog all of my content, but that is 800 some odd hours of video and 250 hours of live streams, and I don't know, hundreds of articles and written pieces, and I just don't have the time to do it. I'll start it and maybe get through a little bit of it at the weekend and then run out of time and have to go back to work, which is what I do during the day. So it occurred to me quite suddenly last week that not only am I probably not the right person to be deciding what my most useful work is, the people who've used it would be better to decide that, but if we were to split this monumental task up into 30 little bite-sized pieces or thereabouts, we could not only get it done, but get it done properly and quickly, and become a real resource for the newcomer. So I am asking for volunteers. What we're going to start out with is selecting 10 or 12 key areas, like the ones I just mentioned. Focus stacking, we'll say, for example. Or let's pick something even more packaged up than that. Say field equipment, the right basic starting field equipment, because I won't have too much on that. I may have 10 videos that talk about it, or half a dozen live streams, but of those, some of them are throwaway. I did them for fun. They were repetition from previously. Nothing has changed since I did it, so you wouldn't want to include that. If I had to go and sort through all of that, it would just never get done. But if a group of volunteers, say 2 volunteers, each had one of these topics, they could go back and quickly screen through the titles to get to a lot of them. You'll remember because you've watched them more recently than I have, probably. So you can select all of the things that seem to be pertinent. Then when you get a chance, look at them and decide this whole video is good. That needs to be on the list. This whole video is rubbish except for that 10 minutes in the middle where he talks about X, Y, and Z. Let's use that piece. And that article that he wrote, or that checklist, doesn't matter, whatever it is, whatever you can think of that's content that I made, put it on the list. Now, this project is being run by 2 very important people. You know them well, Susan Seaford and Amy Furman. Susan and Amy have agreed to work together and act as co-directors. That's really what they'll be doing, is directing this. They'll be there to help you. They'll be there to help you understand what your topic is, what your subject is, if you volunteer. You'll take your list to them. They'll go over it with you, probably watch some of the content with you, and between all of you, you'll decide on the correct order. So you'll come up with maybe 6 pieces of content, 8, 12, I don't know. It'll be what you decide. If there are only 3 good bits of content, or 2 even, then fine. We may just combine that topic with another topic, but it is what it is. I mean, we're not going to. I will do additional content in the future if we find that there are areas that need to be updated. But for now, this is going to be what we already have. What order does it need to be presented in? How would you get the most out of it if you watched in 1, 2, 3 in this order, or 3, 2, 1, whatever? You decide. When you and the director you're working with have decided on the content and the order, it comes to me. I will make a short video. I'll look at all of that content. I'll make a short video and I'll introduce it. What's in it? What am I going to say in it? What's important? What the key points are? And the whole thing will then be a package. And it will be packaged inside one big playlist. That big playlist is the AWP Essentials. It's macro essentials for macro photographers. And it will contain, at least for now, 10 chapters, and those chapters will have your name on it. They will be your chapter, plus your whoever works on it from a director standpoint. And I will do the video, and it will be your gift to the macro community, because you'll have done the work and you will get credit for doing that. And then as time goes by, we refine it. If you come across something that's better, we throw one video out and replace it with another, fine, whatever we need to do. I see it as an ongoing project. One thing that's important though is I don't plan to curate anything behind your back. If we're doing this like this, then the curation of the content is something you need to do. If I were to start micromanaging that, then it would no longer be a viewer curated playlist. It would be something I came up with. That's already out there. This needs to be something more. What do you think? Do you have any questions? Does it sound interesting? 3 people have already signed up, and I am very, very excited about that, because we only mentioned this once on Thursday. So 3 people have signed up. I expect there to be more. If I could have the perfect scenario, it would be that we would get 30 people or 36 people who would want to be, do this for a day or two, or a few hours at the weekend, however long it takes. That's up to you. But if we have enough people that there could be 3 people looking at content, and you split it up into 3 stacks, we could be done with this in a week, instead of going on 6 years it's taken me, and I still haven't done it. So it's very exciting, and I think if you wanted one more reason to do it, one more reason to volunteer, it would be my numbers have stagnated. Not because I think I'm necessarily doing anything wrong. I think I've reached the audience that is going to sync with me. Sync was a bad choice of words. Very bad choice of words, come to think of it. No, I've reached the people who are interested in this kind of macro photography that I do, and those that like it are still here, and those that don't have moved on. This will open up my work to a new audience. The people that come, look around and can't find what they're looking for, they go to somebody with a better organized playlist. This, I hope, will open the doors to a whole new batch of viewers. And if that happens, it could make the business part of this more successful, which would take the pressure off, it would take the pressure off the people I have to beg for money, and me for having to do the begging. So that's the other side of this. It could potentially be a real boost to the channel. Think about it. If you have any questions, ask Amy, ask Susan. They know more about this than I do by now, and they have the last word on everything. I'm standing back. They're even going to select the topics, the 10 or dozen topics based on the volunteer sign up. Okay, that's enough. I'm not going to say anything else. It's very exciting. I think this is going to be good. All right, that is everything. So now what I want to talk about is the whole issue with the I'm going to call it the Gilloy system or the Gilloy technique, because it is novel enough and it is well thought out enough and well described enough by Klaus that he deserves to have his name on it. He's put a lot of work into it. But what it is a technique for high speed focus stacking, handheld, in the field, using continuous light. This all came about because he's an outdoor photographer. He loves to focus stack, but he's not crazy about doing so in the studio. He likes to be out in nature with living, moving organisms. And as you know, if you've ever tried it, focus stacking under those conditions can be really, really difficult. As he thought through the process, he decided that what he really needed was a better piece of hardware that would allow him to collect the images faster. So he needed something with a very high burst rate, something that could grab the images quickly, process them in the camera, not process them as in stack them, but convert them to usable data, to raw data, that he could then stack in the software program of his choice, be that Xerine or Helicon. I think he's used both. And in order to do that, he needed to be shooting at a pretty high shutter speed, a pretty fast shutter speed. Because when you're shooting at 120 frames per second, which is what the camera that he bought can do, then he had to shoot at shutter speeds that would fit into that. Couldn't shoot any slower than that, obviously, because then you couldn't shoot that many frames per second. So he ended up deciding to go with a camera that could shoot 120 frames per second, which is a Sony camera that is fairly famous because it is one of the few accessible cameras that has a global shutter. And it turns out that the global shutter is a really, really crucial part of this whole process. To make sense of this, let's talk for just a minute about what a global shutter is compared to a progressive type shutter, the rolling shutter that most of us use. Most of our cameras use them. The global shutter, you can think of it this way, is that it is either turned on or it is turned off. It's not physically covered with anything. When you release the shutter, it accepts photons onto its surface until it doesn't anymore. It doesn't have leaflets that pass down in front of it to expose the sensor to the light. It's always exposed to the light. It's just either gathering data or not. This is very, very important, because the problem that I started seeing very, very quickly, even though my camera will shoot at 120 frames per second at a lower resolution JPEG, but still a very respectable picture. The problem that I was seeing was that I was getting movement in my subject, which is almost impossible not to get when you're handheld. Either you're moving or the subject is moving. A rolling shutter does not expose the whole sensor at the same instant and then turn it off. It exposes the sensor in a strip. First of all, your first shutter leaflet starts to come down, and as it exposes the top of the sensor, long before it gets to the bottom, like if you were shooting at half a second, your first shutter leaflet would go clunk, and it would leave the thing open for half a second, and then it would be closed off. That's how your shutter normally works. But at the kind of speeds we're shooting at, especially up 1/500th of a second, what's happening is the top shutter, the bottom shutter, I should say, the front shutter, the first shutter, first shutter starts to come down, and before it's gone very far, the second shutter that's going to close it starts to come down, and then the first shutter uncovers the bottom of the sensor, which immediately is then covered by the second shutter. So you get a strip of shutter exposed. This works with most of the things we do because it's well timed with our flashes. Our flash duration needs to be long enough to expose all of that shutter. If the flash duration is shorter than the time it takes for the gap in the shutters to cross the sensor, then you end up with only half of a picture, or a big black band across the picture. You may have seen that. But the other thing that happens is, and you need to think about this one carefully for a second. I'll use just 2 fingers to show the strip that goes down the sensor. If something moves as the shutter gap is going down the sensor, if an antenna or an appendage moves to somewhere else, you're going to capture that image at the different locations as it moves, because you're gathering information progressively in order. It takes a finite amount of time for that strip to pass down the sensor, and anything that moves in that time to a different location, or if you move, then everything in the image will move to a different location. And as that's all happening on one photograph, you start to get an effect that looks positively weird. You've seen pictures, I'm sure, of fan blades that are spinning at just the right speed to elicit this effect, to where the blade starts to look curved, like it's made of jelly. It's bent around. That is exactly what I started seeing in a lot of my shots when I was using the high speed. I certainly had enough bright light. We're going to talk about lighting in a second, because that really is another part of the problem. But I was using a bright continuous light and the very high speed shutter, very high speed rate of firing. I was also using a very brief, very high shutter speed, 1/500th of a second, which is also what Klaus uses, I think, or it's close to it. That is faster than most flashes can deal with, but more to the point, if you're firing 120 times in 1 second, that is not really enough time to recharge the capacitor in your flash anyway. So we have a problem there. It's not insurmountable, and there are some very, very cool and interesting ways around that, and we'll talk about them in a minute. But it really means that you're either going to have to use the sun plus the liberal application of ISO, which you're going to have to let climb pretty high in some cases, or you're going to have a very bright light, which is the technique that Klaus uses. And it's actually the one I've been using. I made a gizmo that's got lots of light comes pouring out of it, and it works. It really does. What doesn't work, though, is the fact that I'm trying to do this with a progressive shutter. And why is this an issue? Well, it's because everybody has a progressive shutter except Klaus. That's a pretty drastic statement, isn't it? Global shutters in consumer cameras are not common. And generally speaking, the hardware that uses them is not cheap. In fact, it's expensive. They're expensive cameras. It's the Sony A9 III, I believe, that Klaus has. It might be the 2. I think it's the 3. But it is very much an issue when you don't have a global shutter. And you'll never get the shot perfectly aligned. Not if you're handheld, not if there's a breath of air, or if your bug is so much as moving an antenna. You're going to run into this problem to some extent or another. There's things that you can do to mitigate it, to make it less of an issue, and they're all the things that you would expect, things that would minimize the chances of your camera moving in relation to your subject, using a gimbal, using a tripod, using a monopod, or as you'll see from the incredible discussion I had today with Lester. He uses all kinds of gadgets to stabilize his shots in the field, and yeah, you'll see some you never thought of before, I know. But using the in-body stabilization in your camera is another way that you can lessen the effects. Even the most sophisticated system isn't going to eliminate this. There is no system that eliminates the fact that this guy's waving his left antenna around still, ever so slightly, back and forth. I guess he's sensing the air, but he's not going to stop doing that just because I don't have a Sony. So you won't be able to kill that rolling shutter effect, but you can lessen it. Using faster shutter speeds, okay, well, that's one way that we try to eliminate motion, right? The higher shutter speed, the better. But we're already pushing the envelope when it comes to light as it is. And we don't have just a whole lot of wiggle room above, say, a 500th. Maybe on a bright day, or if you have a very effective lighting system, you can get a little bit faster. But the distortion is still going to be there if there's any movement. It'll just be a little less apparent. Keeping the camera steady between shots is almost it's almost taken care of by the technique that Klaus has developed, because he's using such high speed and a very smooth pull of the focus. It does somewhat minimize the movement of the camera between shots. I think the gadget that I designed last week and built one of, and then sucked up into the vacuum cleaner this afternoon, and it snapped it right in the middle, so it wasn't strong enough anyway. But I use a thing that clips on the focus ring of the camera and has a little lever on it, so that I can pull my focus very smoothly and quickly with just one finger or a thumb without having to turn my wrist, which is that's difficult to do without moving the camera, is what I'm saying. So that's one way that you can do it. And of course, remember that a little bit of movement, the very best solution for that is your stacking program. That's what Helicon and Zerine do best, is align these pictures perfectly. What you can't do is align this guy's photographs if his antenna is moving in the shot. If the antenna is being photographed in different places in the same photograph, there's no alignment that's going to remove that effect, and that's a problem. So the other way we stop motion, of course, is with low power, high speed flash. Flash like the speed lights I use with IGBT technology in them, that cut off the power going to the flash tube so abruptly because of the MOSFET switching and everything, that you can really freeze the moment. Of course, we really can't do that, can we? Because the next moment is already here, while you'd have no time to recharge. Are there other technologies that will allow us to do that? There are, and I'm going to share with you some of the prices on some of those technologies. And I'm going to then read the notes. I hope Joseph's here tonight, because I'm sure he's got one of each of these devices in his living room, and I'd love to know which of them actually work. But anyway, getting back to the things that we can do to mitigate the problem, slowing down the movement of the subject, finding a way to protect the shooting area from the breeze, or anything you can think of, cooling your subject down. There's a million things that you can try. Again, it's only going to make a relative difference, and there are ways that you can somewhat improve the rolling shutter using post-production, but it really only works for teeny tiny corrections, and it's not gonna be a first line effect. Of course, we're already shooting at the maximum frame rate. That's another thing that is going to help smooth out any movement between shots, and you're not going to get anything higher than 120 frames per second in the kind of equipment that we're talking about. But we're already there, so there's no headroom for us to go any further. So what about the shutter speed? I say 1/500th. I mean, 1/250th is the sync speed for my DSLR. For the mirrorless camera, it's only 1/200th. So the minimum shutter speed is going to be determined by the frame rate, obviously. But the maximum you can really go crazy with if you have the light, and that's going to be where the problems come in. Is the faster your shutter speed, the less light gets to your sensor, the more light you have to add, and that just becomes complicated. I mean, Klaus's light system, I forget how many billions of lumens it puts out, but I know it sucks up 26 volts of battery from this car battery he clips onto his trousers, which might be problematic for me. I don't know. I've never tried to clip a battery that big on. I'm not sure they'd stay up. But so that's a real consideration. It's all a trade-off for sure. So what about high-speed sync? High-speed sync is actually not anything that's going to help in this situation. High-speed sync is just a way that your flash puts out a continuous burst of flash that's really not. It's a series of very, very short flashes, but it's not synchronized with this frame rate. It's intended for use with high shutter speeds above the sync speed is when you would use that, and it's not really going to address any of the problems we have here. It's the multiple short pulses of light that get put out by one of these devices, and if you've ever used one, especially with Godox, you don't get to use it very often. I mean, you'll use it a couple of times and your batteries will be dead. The problem is it's a solution for a different problem, and you'll hear in the interview today. I asked one of my stupider questions today, and it was about high-speed sync. So anyway, let me see. What we need to think about then is if we can't use flash, and we have to use continuous light or natural light, found light, is there anything else that's out there that could make it more reasonable for us to be able to maximize the things we need to do? By us, I mean people with rolling shutters. Is there anything that we can use that will allow us to minimize the effect of rolling shutter so that we can get results similar, if not as good, as those that Klaus is getting? And yeah, there are a few things, and I've done a bit of research this afternoon on them, and I must say it's a rabbit hole that's well worth going down, because some of this stuff is really new to me. I've heard about some of it, and some of it's just unfamiliar. So I spent a bit of time digging around and looking for prices. By the way, if you happen to be the owner of a company that makes high-speed lighting solutions for high-speed cameras, when I win the lottery and I buy a high-speed camera or two, I am going to immediately cross off the list any of you people that don't tell me how much your thing costs on your website. Just letting you know that. That's going to be the rule going forward. When people go to the website to look up your stuff, one of the things they're doing is comparing the price range of your particular solution to other solutions they're looking at. I don't want to talk to anybody at the factory or give them my email address. I just want to know how much it costs. And if you don't put that on the website, then I'm not interested. And there are a lot of them that do that. Your best bet, if you want to look at the prices of some of these things, is to go over to a Thor Labs or an Edmunds, and you'll find examples of most of this stuff over there, and you'll see what it sells for. The other thing you can do is look at the used market, which is obviously the first place I would look anyway, and you'll get an idea for what some of this stuff can cost. But the first thing that came up from reading through a lot of the stuff that Thor Labs puts out, now Edmunds puts out, they've got a wonderful educational program, by the way, where their catalog, that they used to have a lovely catalog, now it's all online. They have many very good articles with great graphics that explain some of the harder concepts very nicely. But they have some high-speed LED systems. These are just LEDs that can be driven using pulse width modulation and other technologies to put out pulses at very high rates, easily up in the 120 range, and oftentimes much faster. So they can really turn your especially a bright chip on board LED into a very powerful flash tool. I always used to be very down on the idea of companies that would sell LED technology and call it flash, as if they were hoping you wouldn't realize it didn't have a flash tube in it. But as the LED technology gets better and better and better, it really seems to be almost catching up with the xenon flash tube, not in terms of the incredibly short duration or the brightness or the color profile. It's just they're getting closer in all of those areas. And I wouldn't be surprised if one day we couldn't tell the difference between a really high-end LED technology that's flashing at that kind of rate and anything else that you could use. So very short duration pulses of very bright LED light, they're doable, and they can be synchronized with your camera. They synchronize them with cameras that are shooting at frame rates of thousands of frames per second. The ones that are photographing bullets in slow motion, that type of thing. And the companies that make these things are two of the worst for not giving you a clue how much they cost. Phlox, PHLOX lighting systems is one. They're specifically designed for these unique lighting problems, high-speed sync with high frame rate cameras, but they could cost $10 a piece or 10 million a piece, probably closer to the 10 million. There's also a linear relationship between their willingness to write down what they cost and how expensive they are. The harder it is to get them to tell you what it costs, the more it costs. SMI is another company that make high-speed LEDs, and they use these a lot more in photography. I saw some SMI products on eBay, of all places, where a couple of the complete systems were very reasonable, a couple of $100 for working systems, potentially working systems. And they are designed for use with very high frame rate cameras. So you could have a pseudo flash that's putting out synchronized bursts of 120 frame per second, the high power white LED light. It's just going to cost you. Lasers, that's the next category. You would normally want to use lasers if you were imaging things that were moving really fast, like bullets, and they use lasers quite a bit in microscopy as well. But they can be very, very precisely pulsed, probably more so than any of the LED technology, which does it. The LEDs aren't instantaneous in their ramp up, though I don't know enough about it to be very confident in that statement. I think that I think that there is a period of time that you have to wait for them to get to full power. I mean, it's on the order of nanoseconds, I'm sure, but we won't go into a lot about lasers because I did check the prices on them, and if you want just the diode, this is this is just the little thing that you then have to solder onto a board and get a driver for, and a power supply and a housing and funky looking spectacles. If just for the chip itself, it's about $5,000 up to, well, I saw them at $3,000, $4,000, $5,000 just for the LED, just for the laser diode. Yeah, Litron or Litron lasers out of England and coherent lasers on Thor Labs were $3,200 to $5,000. So God knows what the actual system would cost. They make xenon arc flash lamps that are one of the more interesting things. These are very, very short duration that can synchronize with high-speed cameras. Very intense output. They're used for big balls of light, blasts of light, and they use them in all kinds of high-speed capture things where crash testing is one of the times they use it, and gosh, ballistics is another one, fluid dynamics. Anyway, I found a Perkin-Elmer, which doesn't sound very German, does it? But they're a German company. Perkin-Elmer xenon flash devices. The whole thing, I mean, with the power supply, the driver, everything, plus 4 meters. That's 12 feet of light guide, 20 watts of power for only $300 used. It didn't say used broken for parts only. It actually appears to be a working model. So it's possible to get an incredibly high-speed xenon arc lamp that will put out the kind of light that you're looking for at the kind of synchronization speeds for not that terribly much money. Or you could go with a stroboscope. I found one called the Energetique. I kid you not. Energetique. It's one of those words that ends in a Q without the required legal U afterwards. The Energetique EQ99X FCS is $24,145, and it's a flashy light. It's a light that flashes. I don't know anything else about it. I fell asleep trying to read the details on it. Vision Research makes stroboscopes that they use with the Phantom Miro 4 and Miro 4S, those really, really cool high-speed cameras that you see on YouTube, the kind that I'll never have, but Vision Research makes the light for them. They also, there's a company called Drelloscope. I bet Joseph knows about Drelloscope high-speed strobes. There's one of those on sale for $450, an actual full setup, used the AWS-07 Dreloscope. Yeah, high-speed strobe that syncs at these kind of speeds. Very cool. They make short pulse lasers and LEDs that they use in microscopes. But yeah, $10,000 for a microscope illuminator box. $10,000 plus $700 shipping. I guess they have a team of 8 people carry it to your house from Germany or something, but that's, yeah, it's very expensive. These are for illuminating very, very small areas with high precision, not something that would be necessarily what we would be looking at. But yeah, so that was an Andor solution that I saw. That's the name of the company. Look them up. They've got a cool website. And let me see. There was one other thing. If you were going to explore this, if you were thinking, you've got some cash laying around from selling your DeLorean, and you want to get a high-speed imaging system, I would get in touch with the folks at Thor Labs or Edmunds or call Joseph and talk to them about what's the best solution for your use case. What are you planning on using? Because I could see how you could make some very expensive mistakes doing this without too much trouble. But yeah, the companies that really have a mandate that covers all of this stuff, that they would be a go-to solution, would be like PerkinElmer is one, though their xenon flash tubes cost about $600 just for the little glass tube. Seems awfully expensive. But Vision Research, the people that do the Phantom cameras, I saw a Phantom camera that was on sale. My birthday's coming up in a week. It's only $17,500, that Phantom camera. And they had 2 of them. Yeah. What's that? $35,000. Okay. There's other things. IDT, Imaging Development Systems. Never heard of them before, but they have high-speed cameras and high-speed lighting. And actually some of their stuff is reasonably priced. But I'm not telling you anything useful here, other than to let you know that there are lighting systems, there are lighting solutions out there that could be very helpful as we try to figure out ways to minimize the drawbacks of our hardware in doing this kind of shooting. Now, we haven't dealt with other issues related to the final images that you get from this kind of high-speed shooting. We will touch on that on Thursday, because it's kind of what got my mind going in this direction of what is a good macro photograph, because there are a lot of things we need to unpack in answering that question. But we'll do our best to define some of that, and we'll talk about some of the things that objectively could be spoiling our pictures when we're doing this kind of outdoor high-speed shooting with continuous light. I don't think that there's a quick and easy fix for this, and unless you've got $6,000 burning a hole in your pocket and you want to get a switch to Sony, then yeah, knock yourself out. I don't think it's as easy as that. I think that what Klaus is doing is really, really difficult, and he's really, really good at it. But certainly there's more to the story, and we'll get to it in due course. Okay, let me see. It's too late for me to answer any questions, but I will. Oh dear, I just accidentally closed my wonderful drawing and it disappeared. That was a mistake. All right, let me see. All kinds of cool stuff. that, yeah, you know what? I'm going to print this off. Joseph, tell Alan that big LEDs are very capacitive and take forever to ramp up. To get around that, we drive them from insane voltages and currents. True, and we didn't get into all of that, but yeah, there are a lot of this scratches the surface and really just opens up a can of worms, all these fancy and expensive lighting solutions. But it is an interesting conversation. Did Alan tell us the battery and light brand that Klaus uses? I did not. But Klaus will. 2 lines later. Klaus is here, yes. Hey Klaus, the light's the Sirui C150X. The battery is Indri 26 volt 265 watt hour, but a smaller battery could work. And that's one thing I was going to talk to Klaus about. I bet a 24 volt battery would. It wouldn't give you the peak output, but yeah, it's yeah, and that battery's costly. A bit more costly than I would have guessed, but there you go. There you go. Harold is asking, how about a studio strobe like a Broncolor Cirrus 800 high sync? Yeah, I mean, yes, you can use those studio strobes, but you know the problem is this: the 800 uses a suitcase-sized power management system, and the cables are this big around, and you have to carry this thing out in the field. Good luck. I mean, I know you're a hardy person from the northern reaches of Scandinavia, but I challenge you to carry a Broncolor system across the tundra to take your pictures. I think we've really got to look at the more portable solution here. But yeah, if you're in the studio doing it, you could. The problem then becomes, what do you do with all of that light? I know Broncolor makes a focusable attachment for their light, but you know it's another 10 grand. We'll talk more about this. I'm being dismissive, but I don't mean to be. All right. We are 1 minute over, so I'm going to wish a happy birthday to David. Congratulations, David. What, 32 this year, I think? Well done. Robert, greetings. Glad you're here. And yeah, it did stir up a lot of conversation. I'm glad to see Robert's comment. Oh, Klaus points out that 95% of the V-mount batteries are 14.8 volt. But why do you need a V-mount battery if you're mounting it on your trousers? Don't you need a T-mount battery? Yeah, I'd have to think about that. You know what? I'm going to let Klaus answer the questions about his rig. Klaus, thank you. I'm sorry I didn't get to talk to you before this, but it's been a super busy week and weekend. But yeah, I'll see you guys on Thursday. We're going to be talking about the good macro photograph, and it will be light-hearted, and I'll show lots of examples of bad macro photographs, all taken by me. So I will see you then. And there's a special request. We don't normally do requests, but I am going to close out with a special request just for David. Yeah, thank you, Amy, for this brilliant idea. Good day, everyone.